I am so excited to be here moderating the mental health, burnout, and how to live your life better. My name is Hayley White, and I am burned out, okay? Who else here is burned out? We are living in an era when we have had to be everything. Moms, business owners, slay, 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 slay. But what about us? So I am lucky that I'm not here to answer the questions. I am joined by these brilliant women who have all the answers. To my left, we have Jennifer Cohen, the best-selling author of her brand new book, Bigger, Bolder, Better, Bigger, Better, Bolder.
Bigger, Better, Bolder.
There we go. Which, by the way, just hit #1 on Amazon and on the Wall Street best-selling list.
In business.
Okay.
In business, I have to be very specific.
It counts. It counts. And you also are an entrepreneur. She has a podcast. And I mean, my gosh, you've done so many things, other books. And then we have Dr. Daya Grant, neuroscientist. And we got a squad here to support. Meditation teacher, yoga teacher, and she also helps elite athletes with mental performance. Okay, ladies, I know you could talk about yourself forever, but I want to dig in because we need the goods today. And my goal is for all of us to come away with tactical, actual tools that we can apply to our life, okay? So I'm burned out right now. I hit my wall about 6 months ago. When did this happen to you? And I want to know, like, what were the symptoms and what was that wake-up moment for you where you're like, I can't live like this anymore?
You want to go? You're the neuroscientist. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I'm just going to speak as a mom instead of the neuroscientist first. I hit a wall too, and we all have. My most recent wall is nowish. I have a 5-month-old, and I have a business and all the things, all the hats. We had a long journey to get to the second baby of ours. And so I knew as soon as I came back from maternity leave, which I do in quotes, because when you own your own business, there's not so much of a break. Your boss is hard. I knew that I wanted to hit the ground running. And so he was born in October. January hit, and I hit the ground running. And I ran so hard and so fast that at the end of January, I face planted, I got COVID, and everything was just forced to stop. And that was a wake-up call for me. And it was a reminder that I'm super motivated, I'm super driven, I'm in love with life and my work and my family, and I want to do it all. And yet, I have to slow down and I have to pause sometimes. And I know the science behind it, but putting these thoughts and ideas into action is a whole other thing. So physiologically, what happened for me was the anxiety, the scattered brain, feeling like I can't give fully to any one thing, and that I'm doing everything in a sort of mediocre way. And it sucks. Like, I don't like that feeling at all. So I knew what was happening physically first, and then my mind sort of wrapped around, okay, all right, you've got to do something differently here so that the physical symptoms can start to subside. So it's the recognition, and then let's shift. So then February for me was recovery, healing, adjusting, putting new systems in place, asking for help. And now we're in March, and I feel so much better. And it's a process. It's not, I hit the wall and now I'm going to be good forever. It's, I hit the wall, I made adjustments, I took a breath, and I'll hit a wall again. But I just have to keep coming back to center and trust that that process I am capable of leading, and it'll get me out of it every single time.
I agree. I wanted to add a couple different things. I totally understand, especially if you're a mom and you are an entrepreneur or a working mom. I think what happens a lot of times is that we have a lot of external pressure on us that we have to be good at everything. And it's really impossible to be great at everything at the same time. And so what I really don't like, what I really disdain actually, is this idea of balance, like a work-life balance. I think that's giving people a lot of undue pressure to to succeed and to do everything well and to be balanced. It's impossible. If you're going to be really great at your work, your personal life will suffer. If you're really great and personal, your work is going to suffer. And I think that is like a realism that people have to understand and not beat ourselves up when that is happening. I also feel like mental health, as social media becomes so much more prevalent in our lives, we put so much additional pressure by the comparison game. We compare ourselves to Joe Schmo and this person and that person, which then takes us down a really bad mental spiral that we're not good enough, that we're not pretty enough, that we're not talented enough, and that our highlight reel isn't matching somebody else's highlight reel. And I feel like if we, even though we know these things intellectually, if we're able to really take that intellect really and live it to be different, it would really help and behoove everybody in our mental state or our mental health. And it's really hard, right? Like, even though we know these things on social media are not true, whatever else, for whatever reason, we cannot take that information in and then act accordingly. We still want to believe. And so all of these things kind of help or actually hurt our mental health. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about those things, the social media aspect, the idea of balance, the idea that we have to be good at everything. And as women, we have a lot of extra pressure on us that I feel that men actually don't have, right? We're supposed to be like rock star entrepreneurs, rock star moms, wives, everything. And it's just a lot. And we got to be easier on ourselves, or we're going to have like mental breakdowns more often than we probably are already, right?
Yeah. Too late. Spoiler alert. But for real, I want to dig into what is working for you guys. Like, let's dig into it. I had like my mental breakdown, let's just get real about it, like a year ago. And it was like suddenly these like kind of holistic breathwork circles weren't really working for me anymore. You know what I mean? So I kind of want to dig into what supplements, as a neuroscientist, as, you know, coaches in this space, like what supplements are working? What real practices are you integrating that you're seeing with your clients, with yourself, that are actually working? Give us the goods, please.
I'm just going to say that building really good habits are, honestly, that's like the key. I think it's a foundation to have a really good routine, really good habits that keep you on point and get you to be productive. Like, not just, I mean, supplements is definitely like, I'm a big True Niagen person with NAD, because you get older, your NAD levels decrease. And they're actually here right now. They're outside. Woo. And it's not because they're here. I'm saying that literally. But also vitamin D is another one that I'm very, very strong on, omega-3s. But more than that, exercise. I really want to emphasize exercise as a habit that shouldn't even be for your physical, but it's really amazing for your mental state of mind. To me, if I don't incorporate some form of movement first thing in the morning, my whole day is like awry. And I mean my focus, my ability to be cognitively alert. I have way more energy when I actually exercise. People assume that, oh, you know what, like it's just for your ass and for your abs. But honestly, as you get older, it's really more for your like mental state of mind. And it is a savior. So like building these healthy habits is so important for your overall mental health. Don't you agree, doctor?
100%. I think the two most important things for myself, but also for the athletes I work with, are a combination of meditation and movement. And that's science-backed. This isn't just, I think you should do some meditation and movement. The science shows that it's changing your brain at the neural level, at the networks level, at the cognitive behavioral level. It's working, and we feel the effects of it, but we get pulled by the world, and we don't always stick to our routines and our habits. But those are the two anchors in my life. And same, if I start, not every day is perfect. Let's be real. Every day, we don't know what's going to be thrown our way because we're living in this world and where many of us are moms or we have responsibilities. But if I can anchor in meditation and movement first thing in the morning, I can ride the wave for the rest of the day so much better. And I've experienced it. And so I can sit up here and talk to you about the science, and I'm passionate about the science. And I'll also say, you have to be your own scientist, and you have to try what works for you. My type of movement isn't going to work for every one of you. The way I meditate isn't going to work for every one of you. And also, the way I meditated this morning isn't going to serve me tomorrow. So you have to be able to take these things that you know are critical to your thriving and then make adjustments as we move along.
Can I add one thing, though? I'm going to add just one thing to what you just said, because for me, meditation, to your point, doesn't work for me. I don't have the personality. I've tried a million times, and I'm sitting there thinking of a million things, and 1 minute feels like 45 hours. So well, oh God, well, I don't like it. Well, I don't like it. I don't like it. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is another, to your point, is that just because something works for one person, don't feel pressure that because everyone's talking about it and it's a really big hashtag that, oh, meditation's a really big thing or journaling is a great thing, I must do it or else I'm not going to be full or, whatever it is. I think that a lot of this is trial and error, right? Because people always ask me, what's the best form of exercise? And the truth is, whatever you like the best or hate the least, and that you'll actually do, right? So if I say to you, go run, and you hate running, you're never going to do it. So therefore, it's completely it's a non-issue. So trying as much as you can to figure out what habits really work for you to make you the most optimized for who you are, and don't put pressure on yourselves. For me, my running to me is my meditation. That's when I really kind of get into my zone and I really get into that fluid state. So, I mean, there's so many different things out there that people should try, like even grounding. Do you know what grounding is? It's a really great one too. Here you go. She's going to grab my. Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's just interesting when you start to look at this stuff, the science is really there to back it up. And now we have the science to show us and the data that it's not just this woo-woo stuff. There's an amazing documentary on grounding. It shows the science of really rewiring your neural pathways. And for me, I struggled with depression, and it was I want to know that we're never broken, that our brains can be rehabilitated, our bodies can be rehabilitated. And that is the conversation I want to have, that it's never too late. You're never too far gone, and you matter. Okay, but this is true. But I want to talk about the idea of self-care. Self-care is they say, I get home and from running, errands, and I'm sitting in my car, self-care. I'm fuck that. That's not self-care. Self-care is locking the door and having alone time. Self-care is boundaries. So I wanted to know from you guys, what are some misconceptions about self-care when it comes to mental health?
Do you want to go or do you want me to go? You want to go for? Okay. Well, I think, again, with self-care, it's the same as building habits and structures and routines that work for you or exercises that work for you. What it means to me is going to be very different than what it means to you, right? So for me, what I think of self-care is doing things that are for me, that I get enjoyment out of, that really help me take my anxiety down a notch, really. So for me, it's massage. It is actually exercise. It's doing these things that I actually like to do that actually betters me for the next day or for the rest of the day. I don't think of self-care because I'm not someone who loves, makeup and clothes. For some people, going shopping is considered self-care, right? All of this is so individual, right? And I guess if I had a theme for today, it's really about self-awareness and reflective on who you are as a person and what makes you happy. I wrote this entire book about chasing what you want, not just accepting and acquiescing to what you get. And that was for a reason, because so much of our time and our life is spent just taking what's in front of us and accepting the good enough in everything in our lives, in our professional life, from the job we work to the person we date and marry. So if I have anything on this panel, I'd like to tell everybody to really design and curate the life that you want, that is really authentic to who you are and what makes you tick. And that is in everything. That is to the habits that you make, to the self-care routine that you do. It's in everything, to the person that you marry, date, the job that you do. So there is not a one-size-fits-all in anything. And once we start to do that, that's when our true mental health and our self-care really take a nosedive. That's what I have to say.
Yes.
Yes.
Agreed. I think that, we talk so much about self-care in the more superficial terms. And I'm all for a Sunday afternoon bath, and I'm all for massages and exercise, of course. But really, it's about getting to what's deeper. Like, you have to tune in first to yourself. You have to look inward to then figure out what it is that you need versus what you need versus what you need. And it comes, and we have the wisdom. So, yeah, I'm a big meditation pusher, as you have already noticed. And the reason is because it's a practice to help you tune into your intuition. And from that place, then you know, okay, what kind of self-care do I need? Now I can shop more consciously than just trying this and trying that and grabbing, because you can do that all day long. But really, what is your soul calling for you to do that's really going to support you and sustain you? Because that's what it's about. Like, this isn't a sprint that we're on, right? This is a marathon, and we have to find ways that are going to nourish us from the inside out and carry us through the ups and downs of life, the ebbs and flows, because man, the hits are going to keep coming. And to build that resilience, you have to develop this wellspring of the self-care habits that really, really nourish you. So, yeah, I could keep going, but we'll just stop there.
Oh, we're going to keep going. Oh, we're just getting warmed up. Okay, so I want to talk about your book for a second, Jen. I fell in love with her TED Talk. If you guys haven't seen it, please check it out. Jennifer Cohen, her TED Talk, it's all about this idea that it's this 10% target. And I want you to kind of unpack that a little bit. It's all about being bold to go get, like she said, the life you want and not just letting it come to you. But I want you to kind of relay some of that info because it was so powerful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. So thank you. She's referring to, I did a TED Talk a couple of years ago, and then my book was based on it. And the whole idea is based around the idea of being bold. And that's why the book is called Bigger, Better, Bolder. And it really is based around this idea that I was saying earlier, is that we typically in life, because life is coming at us so quickly, we tend to acquiesce to what's available as opposed to going out and chasing what we really want. And there's a lot of reasons. There's most of the reasons are self-doubt, right? We're scared of failing. We're scared of rejection. We're scared of like the unknown. So then we rather just not even take a shot. And so my talk is really about that. And I put together this philosophy, which is this idea of this 10% target. That's what you're talking about. Yeah. And the idea is that it's two things. Number one, the idea is to pick a goal that you want, that it could be anything, and make 10 attempts at whatever that is you want most. And one of two things will happen. Either you will get to that goal, or another opportunity will present itself that you never even knew existed by going down the process. Because the truth is, and there's a ton of research backing this, most people don't even make one attempt at what they want. And almost nobody makes 2 attempts. So if you already put that out there that you're going to be a person that makes 10 attempts, you're already like increasing that a bit, your chances that much more. But the other thing that what you learn by doing this, and I've done this with a ton of different like a lot of different people, is that while you're on that path, you get very comfortable with failing, because you are trying and you're falling, you're getting right back up again, and you're trying again. And so it really builds your resilience, but it also makes you desensitized and immune to the idea of failure, because you're doing something over and over and over again that it loses its effect of what failure is. And so you're training your brain differently, and you're reframing what you think failure is. And so the success rate has been really profound. And so that's what it's about. So that's what it is. Thank you. Do you want to?
Yeah, I got some stuff for her too.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think what's interesting is thinking about failure as not an endpoint, but as part of the process. You know, in my career, I guess working and trying to sell shows in Hollywood. There's my partner there. It is truly that much failure to get. It's never an endpoint. And when we think about failure, it's like just fail up and keep. And I love the idea of the next step will appear.
Right, or Or the idea is that something in motion stays in motion, right? So everything is momentum driven. So if you're just stagnant, nothing's going to ever happen. But when you're moving in action, things will appear that you never even knew were even like in existence by just being going and doing and putting yourself places where you don't belong, where you're uncomfortable, and just move. And that's the point, right? Like, don't be afraid for the unknown, because that's where your best opportunities come from.
And you're living proof of that. I mean, okay, okay, buy her a book. Daya, so you train elite athletes, no big deal. And, you know, we might not be elite athletes here, but how can we bring those practices to the common folk? And how can we utilize those in our life?
I actually live by the philosophy that we all are elite athletes. We just don't know it. It's in there, though. And by saying that, I mean we're here and we're existing because we believe in our ability to, I don't want to say do more because that feels like pressure, but to get closer to realizing our potential, to realizing what we are here on this planet to do. So we have to train for that. And training the mind is going to set the foundation to then have everything else move forward in an unfoldment, right, in a beautiful way. So you are all elite athletes in my mind. And going back to burnout, I think what happens with so many of us is our focus is pulled over there and over there and over there, into our families, into our homes, into our bodies, into our job, it's pulled in all these different directions. And for me personally, that's when I start to feel burnt out. So athletes, elite athletes, have to learn how to focus on what's important right now. There's an acronym I use all the time, which is WIN, W-I-N, what's important now. If you know how to direct your focus, then you will make faster progress, A, and B, you'll feel better because you're coming from a place of greater peace and mental quiet, and then you're acting in alignment with what your intuition again is telling you what to do and how to do it. So focus. The science is really interesting and it's a little muddled, but there's a couple models that I think are relevant here. One is the way your brain processes doing of a task. So there's something you need to do, like I need to pick up this water bottle. It's usually a front to back processing. So the frontal lobe, your executive control center, says, I need to pick up that water bottle, I'm thirsty. And then messages start moving back and then out into your body. When we're multitasking, so I'm in the kitchen, I'm thirsty, I need to pick up my water bottle, and also my son is thirsty and he needs some water. Now my brain has to do two things. And one model is that because of the hemispheres, there's processing happening on the left side of the brain as well as on the right side of the brain. So the left side may be tending to what I need, and the right side may be tending to what my son needs. What happens when your husband then needs a snack? I only have two hemispheres. Right. And luckily my husband does, and he makes a mean snack. But if there is something else that he needs, I only have two hemispheres. So what's going to happen? Freeze. My brain is going to discard one of those tasks. And we do this all the time. So that's one model. The other model is that we are constantly switching tasks. So there's a concept called switching code, code switching, and you've heard of this, right? So you have to do something over here, and then the phone rings, and you have to answer it, and then you have to turn off the oven, and then you have to text someone, and then you have to pick up, and you're constantly going back and forth. And it happens instantaneously, but it offsets our focus for extended periods of time. So there was some study, I don't know the exact numbers, but if you're sitting at your computer working on a project and you see a little notification pop up, you may think that you're just moving your eyes for a second, but your brain is starting to work on what that notification is calling you to do. And to get back on task, it actually takes 20 minutes.
20 minutes, huh? Wow.
That we don't have time for that. So that's the That's why we're so burnt out. Okay, so what do we do about this? That's the science. Those are the models. What do? We move and we meditate, you guys, because I know I am such a pusher. I am. When we meditate, so we have something. Have you guys heard of the default mode network? No. Okay. When you're listening to me, your brain's working. If we just sat here like this and I didn't say anything, and we did this for like 5 minutes, would your brain stop functioning and firing? No. It might start thinking about what you're going to have for dinner. It might start thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow. It may look back into what you did yesterday and who you talked to and what you said and all the actions you took. You might be ruminating. So the science has now proven that we have this network in our brain called the default mode network, and that's what our brain goes to when we're not actively engaged in a task. That's really important. We need to be able to look inward, to think about things, to think about ourselves and our past. The problem is when that becomes hyperactive, that slips us into rumination, anxiety, and depression. So we don't want a hyperactive default mode network. What quiets the default mode network? Movement and meditation. Okay, it's interesting because now we're understanding why we feel better, why we're able to focus better when we get up in the morning and we go for a run, why after even a 5-minute meditation practice, we can hold a conversation better with someone. We're quieting this network. So there's a lot of tools that we can use, but we can't expect them to happen overnight and for our brain to shift overnight. It's plastic, it can modulate, but we have to train it. So that's where the habits come into play. So we can recreate those grooves and recreate the connections between our different brain regions.
Can I ask for a question first?
Of course.
Since you're such a big lover of meditation, I'm pushing it on everybody, but I'm just joking. What would you recommend for someone who is not someone who likes to meditate, and since you believe that it really is such research behind it, and like running is apparently not considered the type of meditation that you would advocate, when people, or like yoga, so like there's like a whole list, there's a whole like group of people, me on that group, who like yoga and meditation. It's very hard for a lot of type A personalities to like quiet their brain enough to do it. Do you have any tricks or tips of how we can get there to maybe even improve?
Yes.
I'm taking your
Yes. No, that's a critical question. I think one of the reasons I do love meditation is because I'm also type A. And I was very lucky to be born into a family where we learned how to meditate as kids. Had I not had that, anxiety would have, I don't like to think about it because it's very scary. You start with what you have. And the cool thing about yoga, and when I say yoga with a capital Y, yoga philosophy. The cool thing about that is it meets you exactly where you are. So I work with athletes who aren't necessarily, pause please. We've got to speak. Okay. I work with athletes who, they're like, ooh, meditating. I don't know. But I say, tack on 1 minute of stillness to something you're already doing. Go on your run, come home, set your timer for 1 minute, stare at a wall, or close your eyes. Closing your eyes can be confronting and a little intense at first. 1 minute. Do that for a week. This is what I would prescribe athletes, and I do this all the time, and I see how it works. Do that for 1 week. Have a habit tracker. You can use an app. You can have it posted on your mirror, something to keep yourself accountable. You're someone who holds yourself accountable, right? So if you commit to something, you'll do it. After a week, increase it to 3 minutes. And if you can only do once a day, stick with that. I mentioned earlier about being curious and about being a scientist of your own mind and your own body. You have to get really curious with this. I can't tell you what's going to work and how it's going to feel and what your exact dose is. You have to try it, but you have to commit to trying it. So start with 1 minute, increase to 3 minutes, then go to 5, and then just stick with 5 for a year. And at the end of that year, come back to me and you tell me if there was even a subtle shift. Subtle.
Yeah. Thank you.
Start with where you.
So we're all going to be back here a year from today, and we're going to see how Jen's doing. And also me, I've been trying to meditate, I swear to God, for years. And once I started geeking out on the science, you realize that is where it happens, because our energy is like a pie, right? We can only slice it so many ways until that pie, it's like you said, how many ways can you slice your brain? No wonder I had a mental breakdown. Okay, I always like to kind of close these things out with like practical tips for us to take away. What apps or like hacks are you using in your day-to-day life right now that you can like offer up for, bettering our life, our health, our wellness, all the above? Stumped you?
No, I have one answer.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Peloton should really pay me because I'm a huge fan. Peloton. But here's why. It's because it has movement and meditation in one. So sometimes I don't have time to meditate, shocking, I know, by myself in quiet. So I'll just do a 5-minute meditation with my boys and my husband, who's not a big meditator, but he'll buy into this every evening before bed. And the Peloton app allows me to do that. And if you don't have a Peloton subscription, you don't need the bike, by the way, just the subscription. You can do Calm or Headspace or Insight Timer. There are so many meditation apps. Again, figure out what works for you. But that's a big one. And journaling. Use those beautiful journals we got today and just brain dump. That's a really good way to get out of your head and into your body.
My turn. Gosh, I feel this has been like a meditation panel. And so I would say that apps for me are kind of interesting because I'm not much of a technology person. I really love podcasts though. And so one of my things is I love just to walk. I think to me, that's another form of my meditation is movement, thinking. I think that we don't think enough. What I mean by that is we don't let ourselves have a chance to think. We're always moving. And so thinking is actually for me a really great way to kind of ground myself and really get great ideas. So for what I love to do is pick a podcast that I like, go for a long walk around my neighborhood, and ideas come. I regulate my moods. And I think that's a really good hack that I think is really has been really beneficial for me. And in terms of other apps, so to speak, there's such app overload. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know now. I know so many apps that I can't even think of one, right? Because there's so many. It's like podcasts. I mean, there's so many. I can't even name one, right? Except my own. But
Podcast.
Habits and Hustle. Thank you. But I think that we're on such information overload in general that to me that is a huge stressor, that the less we use an app or technology, the happier I am. And so I just like I said, even if you don't want to listen to a podcast and you just want to walk and listen to nothing and just think and be in your own head, to me, that could be another form of meditation.
I wanted to offer up my morning routine that's been really helpful. It's quick. If you don't have a lot of time and you have screaming children, this is great. I get up and I do journaling, and I do 3 gratitudes, 3 intentions, and then 3 self-forgiveness, which is really hard, but that's really powerful because what happens is you actually have to list out the judgments first. I almost feel like I can't forgive myself until I admit what I'm judging myself for, But that one's been really helpful for me. And then I do 3 minutes of movement or yoga. And sometimes it's just rolling around because I'm too tired to even function. But I'm really grateful for you guys. And please follow them on social. It's at The Real Jen Cohen, 1N, Cohen, and at Dr. Daya, Daya, Grant. You know how to spell that. I'm Haely White, Haelyy. And I started a new platform called Midlife Awakening for women who want more from life. And I am not the expert, but I am a connector. And I'm excited to be bringing lots of women's events. So please follow midlife.awakening. And join us in the terrace for a little happy hour. And you're going to love this, a meditation. And before we go, I always do this at my panels as well, because I feel like we're here because we need each other, right? We're in community. We've been separate, and it's sad behind a screen. So please introduce yourself to the woman next to you. Get her Instagram, follow her, hype her. We are here for each other. And thank you so much.